Alongside me is the captain of the ship, Lucas Biggers. We have James, and we have the First Lady, Shakura. And tonight we actually have a very special guest, world renowned Cutman specialist, Mike Rodriguez. Mike, you just actually were in the corner for the cut man for McCaskill in this last fight here in Dallas. How was the fight and everything, and what was your interpretation of what happened?
It was great. It was my second time working with Jessica. My first time was the first Cecilia Breakhouse fight in Tulsa. And what stood out to me about that is the fight was outside back in August. And, the weather in Oklahoma and Texas is very unpredictable. And there was a thunderstorm and the humidity was just brutal. I don't know how each lady, was able to go that hard for 10 rounds. The one thing you will see, with Jessica is her will to win is very strong. Cecilia is a very classy champ. She's a very classy boxer. And Jessica, she knew, going up in weight, and Cecilia was getting ready to break that Joe Louis title record. She went out and got it. Cecilia exercised her rematch clause, and it was great because there were fans in Dallas. It was on a big card with Chocolatito and Gallo Estrada. And, they were basically the co-main event. And, Jessica proved that it wasn't no fluke. And I think there's people out there that thought maybe it was kind of a fluke. But the one thing you see with Jessica is her will to win. Her will to win. And we were very happy. She did her thing. She fought very hard. I think the fans appreciated it. I think, the boxing community really appreciated her efforts, and there's way bigger things to come for her now that she got over that hurdle.
Yeah, one thing with her style too is she really comes forward a lot. Does that kind of make your job a little bit harder though in between the
Well,
rounds?
yeah, anytime you have a fighter that comes forward, and I've worked with some notorious come forward fighters, a la El Bandido, Francisco Vargas, Sergey Lipinets, Sean Porter, even classic boxer punchers like Julian Williams. I've worked with Russian Denis Lebedev. I'm just talking about the world champions that I've worked with. Some of them, their propensity for impact is a lot higher than somebody that's on their back foot. And she just brings that kind of fight. She had some swelling and a pretty good mouse under her left eye, but it was something I was able to control early and made sure that it wasn't a factor in her in-ring performance.
Yeah, you did a great job with her. I did notice. I did notice it in the fight or whatever, but it didn't seem to affect her at all very much.
No, it was underneath the eye. So my big job on that is to make sure that the soft tissue in the pockets of the eye, that the trauma doesn't move. It's kind of like a wildfire. You got to be able to contain it. And I think a mistake that a lot of people do that are just starting out, or even people that are not paying attention, is you have to get on these things quick to negate a problem before it becomes a problem. And that's something that I try to do each and every fight with every fighter.
Yeah, one of the things really that I wanted to ask, just from your perspective, because you have a different view and a different angle in the ring, and then you're looking at different things. When it comes to like judging a fight, what is kind of your take on judging how a fight is dictated? Because a lot of times you hear fighters, and then a lot of times you even hear their fans say, oh, such and such couldn't have lost. They're not marked up. They're not scratched. Their face looks okay. And a lot of times that's not true. What is your kind of take on all of that?
Yeah, you have to look at the kind of the totality of everything, because you could have gotten hit with an elbow. You could have gotten hit with a headbutt, which aren't legal punches. And somebody may say, hey, look at this guy. He's marked up, or I'm not marked up at all. Well, it's all about scoring blows. And, one shot to the eye or the nose or the mouth can cause damage, where the other the 10 shots that you hit them with doesn't mean it didn't hurt them. It just means that their face didn't mark up. And some people, because of the amount of fights that they have, previous traumas to the face, the the angle of which they get hit, their facial structure. Those things come into play a lot. And those are the things that I'm watching for in the corner, as a former fighter and a guy that's trained people, and sometimes I'm the assistant trainer and the extra set of eyes. But my main job there is to not so much evaluate the points and who's winning. I'm constantly watching to see if there's something new on that face that I need to recognize and I need to address immediately, because I'm one of those people. It's better to have and not need than to need and not have. So I don't like to wait for things to become a problem. I want to get on them earlier than early, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and turn you over to James first.
Okay.
James, I know you got a bunch of questions here from Mike.
Yeah, I was wondering if you just mentioned Bandido Vargas. I can't imagine being a cutman in his corner. I simply cannot. I mean, that would take like a gallon of Bondo and a hell of a lot of bandages to clear up.
When he fought Salido at the StubHub or the Home Depot Center, I had been Francisco's cutman for a couple years. I actually wasn't his cutman when he won the title from Mura, the Japanese guy. Just do some business things between the team. And then I came back for the Salido fight. I actually had nightmares that he got cut. And the only thing I had, when you mentioned Bondo, the only thing that I had to fix the cut in my dream was cake frosting.
I'm all for it.
Because with Francisco, it wasn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And having worked about 8 or 9 of his fights, I was originally brought in by his original trainer, Rodrigo Mosquera, and his old manager, Joel De La Hoya, both really good friends of mine in the boxing business. And he had been cut in numerous fights. And most of the traumas that you saw in the Salido fight, the Burchelt fight that I didn't end up working, those were old traumas, and he's a very physical fighter. The one thing that's a little different, if I can digress a little bit, and it's different than boxing and MMA that people have to really think about, and I have tremendous respect for MMA cutmen. I'm great friends with some of the UFC, some of the Bellator cutmen. They do a tremendous job because sometimes they have to address a different kind of cut from elbows and different kinds of strikes. Is an MMA fight, sometimes it's only 3 or 5 rounds of championship fight. A world title boxing fight is 12 rounds. And if you get a guy that's cut in the 2nd or 3rd round, like Vargas was with Salido, or Sean Porter was with Kell Brook, or his fights with Julio Diaz and Devin Alexander, and Sergey Lipinets, with Mikey Garcia, they were cut in the 2nd, 3rd round. And now, as a cut man, I don't just have to address that cut for 2 rounds, 3 rounds. I'm addressing that cut, and sometimes it gets progressively worse, and you have multiple traumas by the end of the 8th, 9th round. I'm having to address that cut for 8, 9, 10, 11 rounds. And it gets pretty stressful. I'm a homicide detective. I was in the military, former fighter, athlete. I think I do pretty well under pressure. Things slow down for me. But internally, man, sometimes you're thinking, man, what else could possibly happen? And boxing being the theater of the unexpected, something else is going to happen. You hope for the best, but, man, you have to plan for the worst.
Well, with Vargas, I mean, it was not just one but 2 eyes. He had cuts both ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the fighter has to cooperate with you because, they got to go out each round and they got to protect themselves, and they're getting, more cuts and mouth swelling and nosebleeds, and it's how they react in the corner. The real champions, they conduct themselves like champions to allow me to work, that they don't panic. And Vargas was definitely somebody that just, he was a pro all the way through and through.
Well, with McCaskill back in August, did that temperature create any problems? I mean, was the humidity that bad? She's perspiring a lot more. I'm thinking I think it would be the collagen would be a little bit different and maybe more susceptible to cuts.
Might have been, but she didn't really have any facial traumas in the Tulsa fight. One thing I remember was she said that her legs were tired because of the humidity. The thing that was hard for me during that time in August they made us wear not only a mask but a face shield. And the humidity in Tulsa was so bad that literally if you took a breath, that shield would fog up. And that was the hard part for me, was getting my big head, maneuvering through the ropes with that face shield and then breathing, and then the thing fogging up and me and not being able to see. Jessica's very determined. Her trainer, Rick Ramos, is a really good guy. They've come a long way together. Very happy for the success. I'm very happy that they had reached out to me, to be part of that team, because I'm going to tell you guys, there is nothing better than first of all, working at a high level, but being part of a world championship team. And I've been fortunate enough to be a part. I've worked with 28 world champions, and I'm coming up on working over 50 world title fights. And there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than that.
So I wanted to get off the subject a little bit, but how is it working with Freddie Roach? I mean, you've been with him a long time, and I guess you guys are pretty tight.
Yeah, Freddie, I go back to the days with Freddie back before Wild Card at the old Outlaw Gym with actor Mickey Rourke on. And I was actually at the time entertaining coming back into boxing as a fighter in the very early 90s, after starting my law enforcement career with the Sheriff's Department here in LA in the late 80s. I was supposed to turn pro, believe it or not, on the Rocky Lockridge, Tony Lopez undercard at the old Arco Arena in Sacramento in July 23rd of 1988. That was shortly after the Western Olympic trials that I had qualified for. And then I got a call from the Sheriff's Department that they had an academy date for me in October. And I said, hey, that's great, but I'm going to be turning pro. And they said, hey, if you get injured or something, we're going to have to start your paperwork over. And I remember talking to legendary promoter, God rest his soul, Don Chargan. And I said, Don, this is my dilemma. And he says, Mike, he's a smart man. He's smarter than me. He says, there's nothing wrong with having a career. So I made the career choice. Fast forward 4 or 5 years later, Freddie's training at the Outlaw. I was a huge Freddie fan. Freddie and I share a birthday. And it was just the typical gym stuff. Freddie's a trainer. I'm trying to come back as a fighter. And then I kind of left the sport altogether to continue my career and, raise my kids. And then fast forward 13 years ago, I get back into boxing as a trainer. I'm not going to compete with Robert Garcia and Freddie and Joel Diaz and the other, numerous trainers that are world-class trainers that are established. And because of my regular job then as a homicide detective, I can't be in the gym every day. Hey guys, I can't be in the gym for you to spar today. I got to go work a homicide. Hey, I can't go run with you tomorrow. I got to go work a officer-involved shooting. So I started learning from some of the best cutmen that ever lived. The first conversation I ever had was with David Martinez, who's worked with numerous world champions, including Manny Pacquiao at one time. And I just started talking to him and Joe Chavez, Carlos Vargas, Miguel Diaz. These names may ring a bell, Rudy Hernandez. Luckily, the Cutman, Ruben Gomez, the Cutman.
Was Rudy Hernandez? Was Rudy Hernandez with De La Hoya?
No, Rudy Hernandez, Chicanito's brother, who works the UFC, trains a lot of the guys. Great trainer, great Cutman. And I had them available to me as friends, and they didn't put up any roadblocks or barriers. And, a lot of people don't know this, but Stitch Duran, legendary UFC Cutman, legendary boxing Cutman, was my boxing coach in the military. I go back, I don't even call him Stitch, I call him Jacob. I go back to Jacob since I was 19 years old. And, I just kind of started working at the lower levels. And years ago, I'd worked with a couple of Freddie's guys, probably because David Martinez wasn't available, Carlos Vargas wasn't available, Joe Chavez, Miguel Diaz wasn't available. Hey, let's try this guy over here for a four-round fighter. And I appreciated it. And I just, put my nose to the grindstone, and I'm just one of those type of people that when I do something, I'm going to try to do the best I can all the time. I just started, building that chimney full of bricks, and it got to the point where they started trusting me with the 8-round fighters and main event fighters, and ultimately it led to Manny Pacquiao, and now me. I'm knocking on wood and very grateful, that I work with, pre-pandemic, and obviously the protocols are different with some promotions, but I pretty much work with all of Freddie's fighters, over there at the Wild Card, and I'm very grateful. Matter of fact, I'm going to head over there tomorrow. Me and my son Andrew, like to get in the gym once, every couple of weeks or once a week. I just, get in the gym with the guys. Just sometimes just chop it up with them. Still, hey, I'm still here. And I'm grateful because Freddie and I have a really, really strong friendship. Thanks to Marie, his assistant, with Pepe Riley over there. If you guys know Pep, Pep's one of the trainers over there with Freddie, Ernie Zavala, Marvin, and the whole wild card staff. And I'm grateful not only for that relationship, but I have probably 10 or 12 other relationships with other camps and trainers where I work with all of their fighters nationwide and worldwide. And it's just a blessing. And I always try to just give everybody, whether it's a 4-round fight or a 12-round world title fight, I try to work every fight like it's my first fight, and I try to work every fight like it's my last fight. That's kind of
that's the relationship you have with Joey Spencer, is that correct?
Absolutely. I had met Joey's dad, Jason, just in passing at a fight in Vegas. And when Joey was going to turn pro at 17, he had reached out, and they were very tight with Virgil Hunter, Andre Ward's trainer. And he asked Virgil, give me a list, a couple of guys that you think would be a good fit for our team with Joey. And I got a call from Jason, and he says, hey, Mike, we're looking at you and somebody else to become a permanent fixture of our team. And about an hour later, he calls me back and says, we want you on the team. And it just kind of blossomed from there to the point where when they come out to L.A., they stay at the house, his mom, Amanda, and, their younger brother, Cal, and they become kind of part of the family. The pandemic has kind of changed some things, obviously, and protocols of what we can do as far as fight week and stuff. And it's great to watch a young man grow. I mean, Joey turned pro, I think, a month shy of his 18th birthday at the Mandalay Bay. Imagine a kid fighting at the Mandalay Bay turning pro. And now he's 11, 12, and 0, and you see the development, and, there's no rush. And he's just one of the young, fabulous fighters that, that I get to work with. And I'm doing the same thing with Jesus Ramos, Abel Ramos' nephew. He's a fantastic fighter. You see what Chris Colbert's doing over in Brooklyn that I'm training with. He's trained by my buddy Ariano Sosa, who has a tremendous stable of fighters, and the fighters I work with in Philly and Texas and LA and beyond. I'm very grateful, very grateful.
Sakura, any questions for Mike?
Oh, just a few. Hi, Mike. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
I like your little backdrop. I'm actually thinking of getting one of those kind of things going, like just to. I think it looks great. What does it say? It says heavy.
Thanks.
Heavy
I mean,
bag.
you're on Heavy Bag Boxing tonight, so Lucas had to connect me up with this. He hooked me up with this background. Also with Boxing Playhouse, another magazine or online magazine type boxing.
All right.
So I had to try to mix both of them together. So Lucas was so gracious as to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, yours looks better than mine.
It does. I can ask you a question though. Is that a digital background?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mike, I guess you can, when you go on Zoom, you can dial that background in by, I guess, maybe adding a picture, making your own background digitally.
Yep.
I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah, with the green screen behind you. Yes.
Oh wow.
There you
I have to check that out.
I mean, but I come up with these great ideas, and then I need Lucas, the technical guru, to actually complete it.
That's fantastic. I did mine the old school way. I just got a bunch of pictures off an app, and I had these thousands of pictures.
Old school.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, but some of my questions are, really simple type questions. I mean, you got my curiosity piqued when you started talking about being a homicide detective. So. Okay. I'm a gory female. I like the blood of the sport and the KOs, all of that. So I was just wondering if you ever had a homicide victim who actually was, literally beat to death in a way, like with someone's fist.
I did, and I actually handled a homicide about 4 years ago. And when we looked at the video, we didn't know at the time who the suspect was, but I could tell by the way he punched, it wasn't just an average guy that just threw a lucky punch, knocked a guy to the ground and killed him. Turned out when I did find the guy, he actually volunteered the information. He was actually kind of proud. He's like, I used to fight.
Mm.
Him probably not knowing that I know every trainer in the fight game. And I said, well, what gym did you train at? And when he gave me the gym, I told him the trainer. And I think at that point, he kind of wished he wouldn't have said that. It wasn't the fact that he hit the guy and knocked him out and the guy died, because that does happen. It doesn't necessarily mean you're guilty of murder. But after he knocked the guy out, he put the boots to him and kicked him in the head about 6 or 7 times. And that's probably what killed him. But I've seen in 17 years, I've been on the sheriff's department for 33 years. I started at 22. You can do the math. I turned 55 2 weeks ago. Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. But I've been
Happy birthday to you.
I've been a homicide detective 17 years, over half my law enforcement career. I worked gangs before that. I've seen every which way that a human being can die. I know everybody's fascinated, with all the, Dateline, which I've been a feature on Dateline at one time, a 2-hour special about a year ago. 48. On Netflix, you have the show The Night Stalker. If you have that's one of the detectives, Gil Carrillo, and the other Frank Salerno. That's where I work at Sheriff's Homicide. Gil Carrillo was actually still on the job when I got to Homicide. He's a great friend, a great boxing fan as well. So, the TV shows are great and the public's like really into it. But, there's a toll that it takes on a person to have to see so much. And there's so many parallels between being a homicide detective and being a boxing cutman. I'm in the blood business.
Yeah.
And in boxing, it's nice because I can be there to help them before something bad really happens. Whereas a homicide victim, I get called after they've already died, and now it's more to find out who did it.
Yeah, that's not the cool part, is having to actually see those dead, deceased people all the time. I understand that. But I guess you get some balance with the boxing.
Absolutely.
Is there any time that you've ever had to let the trainer know, hey, I think you should stop this fight?
Yeah, there's been a couple of times. There was one time in Philadelphia that I didn't even really know the fighter. Somebody asked me for a favor and said, hey, this out-of-town kid has his trainer with him. It's not his regular trainer. Will you help him in the corner? I was like, sure. This kid was getting it handed to him. He was a tough kid from Mexico. I know the Mexican trainers don't stop fights like that. It's just not something they're mentally wired to do. And finally, I had seen enough. And even the inspectors, which I know the commission folks from all over the country, they know me. And this guy's looking at me, and I'm kind of looking at him like, not my fighter. I don't even really know this guy. And finally, I had enough. And I said, stop the fight. And even though the trainer that was there got mad at me, he's like, what are you doing? I said, man, this kid had enough. This kid had enough. And the head inspector walked over to that trainer and the other inspectors and says, you should be glad that Mike was in the corner to stop the fight. He goes, because you should have stopped the fight a round ago. And, unfortunately, I've seen that side. October of 19, I was in the corner with Patrick Day when he fought Charles Conwell, and he died in the ring. I was part of that corner. And that's something that will stay with me forever, because even under the best circumstances, nobody did anything wrong. Patrick was in great shape. He was in a tough fight. But if you're a boxer, if you're a downhill skier, if you jump out of airplanes, if you bungee jump, if you're a race car driver, a motorcycle car driver, if you fly jets really fast, you dive off of cliffs in Hawaii, at some point, at some time, no matter, even if you do everything right, bad things can happen. And unfortunately, boxing is one of those sports where even under the best circumstances, heartbreaking things can happen. So I've seen, that side of the pendulum as well.
Yeah.
So with the thing with, sorry, Sakura, but with Patrick, you were filling in for their Cutman, is that correct?
No, I was hired as his cut man. I had worked
Okay.
against Patrick before. I just didn't show up to work and hey, go work with. No, I was hired to work with him because I know his trainer, Joe Higgins, well, and it's something we had talked about, on numerous occasions to go ahead and team up with them because I have alliances that I have in the boxing game, and they had asked me to work with him, that night. So I got along great with Patrick. He was such a good kid. We had lunch, the day before after the weigh-ins. We were in the lobby the night before, not even talking about boxing thing. He was a very smart kid. He just had a heart of gold. Comes from a very good family, and it's just heartbreaking. And sometimes it's hard for me when I'm sitting there and working fights. I think of Patrick often. I think of him a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking that has to stick with you for sure. And I had heard that Patrick was that type of boxer and such a great young man with so much potential.
Yeah. Patrick would light up the room, and you ever see any pictures of him smiling and laughing, and that was him. He was just that kind of kid.
Well, that's what I hate about that type of situation when they're up and coming and something like that happens. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, so
you're over there with Mr. One Time.
Yeah, right down the street from St. Pete Boxing Club.
You know what? I've had a chance to get to know Keith over the years, because I work with a lot of PBC fighters, and Keith as a broadcaster, and Keith and I have probably been in some way, shape, or form at the same fight card like over 30, 40 times. You know what I mean? And we've always had a very good relationship. I like Keith. I had a chance to meet his folks before, and he's a good dude.
Oh, yeah. His dad and mom, they are so nice. They all are such a great team.
Yeah.
My last question that I have for you. Well, first of all, Uncle Gomez, Ruben Gomez, I love him to death. So tell him hi.
Let me tell you something. Not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
There's one person out there that texts me before every big fight and tells me good luck. And there's one person out there when I step out of the ring for years now is always the first person to text me after a fight. And he's always the first person to text me on a holiday. I got to beat him to the punch now. And that's Mr. Ruben Gomez. He has been, for whatever reason, Ruben has been a supporter of mine since I arrived on the scene. I love Ruben. I've had great conversations about him and his family, and he is just the nicest, most humble, grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate him so much.
Yeah, and he's still so passionate about boxing after all these years. So that's what I love. Now, my question was about the ladies. I know you just got through with this fight, but for me, I was all into these fights, and Lucas and Rob and them, they put this thought in my head like, oh, boxing, female boxing would be so much better if it was 3 minutes. They need 3 minutes. So I'm like, no, they're not getting paid, but for 2 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So let them do the 2 minutes. And so then I'm like watching now, and I'm noticing like when a female gets hurt, it's literally so close to the 2 minute round bell, and it's like, damn, if they'd have had just a little bit more time, that hurt business would have went a long way if there was like that extra minute to like probably end the fight. So what do you think about this whole concept of ladies getting the same 3 minute rounds as men?
Now I'm going to look at this from a different perspective as a joke at first. You guys see a theme in that, guys? Women are always looking for that extra minute, and sometimes us as men, we just don't have it in us. I'm sorry, it's just the way we're built. Okay. I know that a lot of the women want the 3 minutes. They want the 12 rounds in title fights. I say, why not? The fight does go back very quick, because once you hit that, after that first minute, you're down to the last minute of each round. And I don't know what the genesis of that was. but I think it's something that needs to be revisited because they're fighters. I don't look at it as, oh, this is a woman fighter. This is a man fighter. Jessica McCaskill, Clarissa Shields, Katie Taylor, Cecilia Breakhouse, Amanda Serrano, and I'm leaving, Jelena Marinovich, another world champion that I work with, that fought on the Ring City cards, who had a terrible cut. They're fighters. They're athletes. If that's what they collectively want to do, then why not? They're lacing them up. They're risking they're trying to provide for their families. They're risking their health and their lives going into that ring. Just like anybody else, give them that respect. There should be no division. Like I said, as a Cutman, I don't go, oh, I'm working a girl fight. That doesn't come into play. I was working with the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. She had so many belts that
Really?
I told the TV people beforehand, and I told Rick, her trainer, how are we carrying these? We don't have a big entourage because they don't allow a bunch of people in the corner. How are we carrying all these belts? I got to carry my bucket with my Cutman stuff. All my stuff that I take, the assistant trainer had the waters. So I tell the TV people, hey, as soon as that next bout, the bout before is done, we're going to run out and take all of our stuff out to ringside. And then we're going to come back, and two of us are going to carry all these belts. And you can see a picture, and I think James sent it to me, of me holding the belts.
She needed all the help she could get. I think it was like 7 belts at least.
Well, IBO, the WBO, the WBA, the IBF, the WBC, and then you add the Ring magazine. He probably had to pay extra baggage, the big baggage fee, with one of the airlines, because that stuff was too heavy. Those belts, the World Championship belts, are not light. They are not light. They are just like that background you got in the back that says heavy.
I like that analogy. I mean, I'm just like, after speaking to a lot of ladies, boxers, they all are saying that they spar with men and that they do 3-minute rounds. So I'm just like in sparring. So I just don't see.
Absolutely. I don't think the word I got was Jessica didn't spar with one female for this camp. And then she even dropped a couple of guys. They're fighters. And they deserve the pay, they deserve the equal respect, they deserve all the accolades that a male undisputed champion deserves, because they put just as much hard work and passion in it as a Manny Pacquiao, as a Floyd Mayweather, and I respect any fighter. I don't care what they are, I don't care what gender they are. I respect any fighter that walks up those steps and gets in between those ropes, because I know what it takes and the sacrifices they made. So absolutely, give them that respect.
Okay, well, I just added one more question because I just wanted to know, like, what are you most passionate about? I wanted to know what you are most passionate about boxing. Like, what is it that first made you gravitate to that particular sport?
I played every sport growing up, and I did well in athletics, with baseball, basketball, football. Boxing was something that was, growing up in the early 70s, it's something that my grandfather, father, cousins, uncles, is something that always brought us together. Watching Ali and Foreman and Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, and being in the backyard and putting the gloves on with my cousins, and then starting boxing when I was 10 and doing it off and on, and being a Golden Gloves champion and qualifying for the nationals, getting a shot at the Western Olympic trials in 1988. You see how much dedication and how good you have to be to even get past further than that. It's just something that, I don't know, I loved it from the start. And the crazy thing is, being a homicide detective and I have to see the brutality of things. But man, I enjoy two slick boxers. I enjoy a Wilfred Benitez. I enjoy guys that are just bringing artistry.
Yeah.
of boxing historically, and you see guys and the way they move just the way they carry themselves. I was a huge Alexis Arguello fan. I hated Sugar Ray Leonard growing up. You know why? Because he knocked out Tommy Hearns. My family nickname, believe it or not, was the Hitman because I was tall and skinny like Tommy.
Okay.
He beat Roberto Duran in the rematch. But let me tell you something. It's crazy how things change. I hated Ray Leonard growing up. Sugar Ray Leonard now looking back, is one of my favorite fighters ever because his artistry was savage. He gets that label like he's a pretty boy. He had a pretty smile. If you ever watch Ray Leonard finish a fight, Tommy Hearns, Donnie Lalonde, Ayub Kaluli, Pete Ranzani, Davey Boy Green, they are all vicious knockouts. Sugar Ray Leonard was a killer.
Yeah.
Don't let that smile fool you. Ray Leonard was a killer.
You gotta have that killer instinct. Those are some of my favorites, which is why I like Spencer too, because he knows how to finish somebody.
Joey Spencer?
Yeah.
You know, if you look at Joey really closely, to me, he bears a very striking resemblance, facial-wise, to young Arturo Gatti. They have some of the same facial features. And Joey.
I'm looking at that closely. I know they got similar body types for sure.
Yeah, there's certain times I look at Joey and I'm like, not their styles, but I'm just saying, God, like Arturo Gatti. And Arturo Gatti was he was a good looking dude, and Joey just has that total package, and they're bringing him along right, and his dad's doing a great job. And the one thing about Jason, his dad, is he's not one of those dads that's, hey, I know everything, we're not going to do it any other way. He'll solicit the advice of people that he respects and expert opinions. And I know he's learned a lot from Virgil Hunter because they went out and lived for a couple of years with Virgil when Joey was still in his teens. And you can't help but learn if you're around Virgil Hunter. I had a chance to see Virgil, and I hadn't seen him in a while. I have tremendous respect for him. The first question Virgil always asks me is, Mike. Virgil's a retired probation officer. He always asks me, Mike, you still on the job? And I said, you know what, Virg, I could retire any time now. I'm playing with house money. I'm still enjoying what I do. So I'm gonna go. I got a little bit of gas left in the tank. I'm gonna go just a little bit longer. So I'm very
Okay, well, we wish you luck in your career, and hopefully it'll be full time as soon as you get ready to give up that homicide situation.
I already do it full time. I'm lucky that I can make my own schedule now.
Okay.
So I supervise the missing persons unit at Homicide Bureau now. So I don't have to go out in the middle of the night, cold crime scenes. I more or less just oversee the missing persons unit and give direction to detectives on what to do and what not to do. So my job right now is very user friendly, and that's why I decided to stick around an extra year.
Okay. Oh, just one extra year. All right. Well, good luck on that extra year, and thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciated all your questions.
Anytime.
I mean, your answers.
All right. We do have some comments here. Daryl Tomlin said, my guy, best use the best, hashtag war tape, hashtag short fuse.
There it is.
Short fuse.
A shameless plug. The partners with War Tape, a shameless plug. That in itself has been a tremendous journey when I see all the fighters from the Pacquiaos and Canelos and Errol Spence and the Charlos, and you name the fighters, and they're all using War Tape and trusting our product, and it's just been tremendous. We've partnered with the WBC. When you see that green and black WBC tape, that's also part of the War Tape family. So we're looking to continue to do big things and enhancing fighter safety, because what is their biggest money makers that they need to protect is these two things right here.
Mm-hmm.
The money makers.
That's it.
And it's funny you mentioned the WBC. They love this show.
I've had great talks with Mauricio and Pepe and obviously Nancy. They were the ones that came to me about 4 years ago, and they says, hey, Mike, we notice everybody's using the product. We're all about fighter safety. Is there a way we could partner up together? And we had some great discussions. I've been over to have numerous meetings at the WBC office. I get to see Mauricio or Pepe, on the road, and we have Zoom meetings and we talk. And, it's all about making boxing a better sport. That's why I do it. I don't do it for the personal recognition or to get rich. Obviously, you want to be fairly compensated and recognized and respected for what you do, but what's better doing something at a high level that you have passion for? And I'm very blessed that with my law enforcement career, working homicides and with boxing, I get to do two things that I absolutely love to do at a high level. And I don't. The one thing is that I don't ever take it for granted. I try to have the same energy, passion, and compassion that I have in life for the things that I love to do.
Well, I did have some other questions. Now, I was ringside. Well, no, I wouldn't say ringside. I was in attendance, at least, for that fight with Patrick Day and Charles Conwell. I think it left an impression on me. Clearly, it left an impression on you. And through the boxing community, I kind of heard that Charles Conwell wasn't taking it so good. Does it really, hurt a fighter that bad when, something like that happens, that tragedy?
Oh, and I'm going to kind of backtrack on that. Of course it does. Of course it does. It still hurts me. Charles Conwell is a fabulous young man, fabulous fighter. And you fast forward a year later, and before Christmas, whose corner do I get called to work when he's out here in LA? It's Charles Conwell. And I remember we didn't really need to even say anything to each other. I walked up to him. I said, "How you doing, champ?" I gave him a little hug. Nothing really needed to be said. He handled himself with class, with dignity, with compassion. There was no fault of his job. And, what's a boxer's job? A professional boxer's job is to do what? Is to win the fight, whether it is to render the other man unconscious. It's just one of those things, like we talked about, that it's the hazards of racing cars at 200 miles an hour, or jumping off a cliff in Fiji, or being a downhill skier trying to ski down Mount Everest. Patrick, just what Patrick chose to do. He didn't want to be anywhere else. He didn't want to do anything else. I know it's cliche to say somebody died doing what they love to do, because nobody wants to die. He had so much life in him. But that should not take away from anything from Charles Conwell and his life. It's something he will always carry inside of him, but I think what he's doing is he's carrying the memory and the legacy of Patrick with dignity and class, and trying to fulfill his dream, which I think he will, of becoming a world champion. That's the best way I can put it, if that makes any sense at all.
No, yeah, for sure. Great fighter, great guy. Now, I hate to even say that, but the ref got a lot of slack for that fight. Do you think it wasn't stopped soon enough?
Let me tell you something. I've been in fights 50 times where a fighter took more punishment than Patrick Day. Patrick Day was fighting back. Was he taking punishment? Absolutely. Was he taking any more punishment than any other guy that was maybe on the losing side of things? I don't think so. I'm very cautious about that. I remember a round or two before, me and Joe had a little conversation. I said, "Joe, how's he think he's doing?" I saw a little bit of Patrick stumble. Patrick came back to the corner. He was lucid. He was answering questions. He was breathing fine. He had actually had a pretty decent round the round before he got knocked out and ultimately injured. I mean, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. My good friend, the bread man, Stephen Edwards, former trainer of Julian J. Rock Williams. He just trained Karan Davis to a draw against Anthony Durrell. Tremendous boxing mind. He always said that the Sunday in boxing, the Sunday morning quarterback the Sunday morning coach and critique is always right. They're always right. They're never wrong, right? Because they have the availability to know things that have already happened, and sometimes when you live in the moment. Joe Higgins, Patrick Trainer, is a tremendous guy with tremendous passion, tremendous love for Patrick. He would have been the first one if he thought Patrick was any kind of peril. He would have been the first one to protect Patrick with all of his might, with his life if necessary. I know him to be that kind of a man. The brain and the head trauma is a tricky business. I know that I still have some residual effects of fighting. Thank God I knew when to stop. You just don't know. Patrick was in great shape. He was in great spirit. There was nothing in the corner that gave me any indication that he was in danger until he suffered that last knockdown. It wasn't even a knockdown. It was the collision with his head on the canvas that concerned me the most. And I remember running around the ring because of that collision with the canvas, wanting to see some movement with him. That's how concerned I was immediately, and I didn't. And unfortunately, the end result was the worst possible scenario. But to answer your question, I mean, I don't even remember. I don't think the ref, there was, like I said, they can always go back in hindsight, but I remember some vicious fights over the years with Bobby Chacon and Boza Edwards and Bazooka Limon, and I remember fights with Ray Mancini and Livingston Bramble, and Patrick Day didn't take more punishment than those guys. Yeah. It's just one of the things that sometimes in Arturo Gotti and Mickey Ward, I guarantee you, they took more punishment, and at face value, they took more fights. Just the brain is one of those things you just don't know. It's not like a knee or a broken hand where you can look at it and say, okay, you need to be out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I backed the ref. I was like, I didn't see anything that said, stop it now, or nothing like that. But
I was there and I was looking at Patrick. I'm there looking at Patrick. I was probably the last person that actually physically put hands that had their hands on Patrick, because I was the one maintaining his face. You know what I mean? During that round.
Definitely. Switching gears here a minute. Just something I always wondered. When your fighter comes back to the corner, can you tell if it's a cut from a blow or if he was actually laced? And if so, is being laced much worse of a cut?
No, the worst cuts are the headbutts.
Yeah.
Headbutts, man, because they got a funky design to them. When they start looking like radio static on a radar, and work all kind of different ways, or when you get a headbutt and you got cut and you're swelling, the gloves usually give you a nice slit, a nice long cut, and then sometimes you're dealing with scar tissue. So it's just, you just got to be prepared for everything. You got to be equipped with different kind of swabs and medicine that they allow you to use. And that old saying, direct pressure, man. You got to know how to apply the direct pressure. Because of the invent of MMA over the last 20 years, it's kind of become fashionable that everybody wants to be a cut man, but not everybody really wants to work cuts. So you're in the stoop and you're in the trenches. And when you're respected by your peers, and when I say peers and people that I look up to, like the Stitch Duran and the Carlos Vargas and Ruben Gomez, the late Joe Chavez, Danny Milano on the East Coast, and some of my contemporaries, Mike Basil and Aaron Navarro in Texas. When you have their respect, that's what means the most to me. Or when your fighter knows that work that you did helped him, get another round so that he could perform. That's really what it's all about. But it's all about, I'm a preparation guy. Like I said, I was a fighter. I was in the military. I'm a homicide detective. Everything about what I do is from the outside. Hopefully people know that I try to prepare the best I can. I hope for the best, but I always expect the worst.
All right. We got another comment here. Dalia Duran. Hey, Mike. Thank you much for everything. You are the best.
Oh.
Stellar, thank you very much. I'm part of a very fantastic circle that allows me to do, to have success at what I do. And when you surround yourself, like you guys in your show, when you surround yourself with good people, it's no coincidence that good things happen. And I'm grateful for that.
Well, we definitely want to thank you also for your service. And it definitely sounds like, being in the military and being a policeman helped you be a better cut man as well.
Oh, absolutely. I guarantee you there are parallels of what helps me be good at one helps me hopefully be good at the other.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a really interesting interview. I think one of our longest ones, really. We definitely asked a lot of questions, and we appreciate your patience.
Anytime you guys need to come on or you need me to reach out to somebody to come on with you guys, I like the format, how you guys going. I like you guys know that Shakur is really the one in charge over there. I see it. And that's okay. And you know what? was a good time. So I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Mike, I just want to throw out one real quick one.
Sure.
Just a second here. Por favor. Jessica McCaskill, will she see Katie Taylor? Will she see Clarissa Shields? What do you think she's doing next?
You know, I think the great thing right now, I think she's eating a lot of cake this week and she's relaxing. She actually had to go work on Monday. She has a professional job. God bless her. You know, the great thing about being in the driver's seat is you can drive and kind of not know where you're going at first. And I think being in the driver's seat and being the undisputed champion and having all those belts, it's always nice to have options. And I think they're going to make, Rick Ramos, her manager and trainer, they're going to make the best decision possible. And I couldn't tell you right now what my gut feels.
It's early.
It's very early, but I think good things and bigger things are still to come. And I'm very happy to be part of that team.
Yeah, good things happen to good teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, definitely appreciate you coming on, Mike. Great interview. Definitely look forward to talking to you again a little later. You have a great history in this sport and your career. And we salute you, give you your flowers and all that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys. And anytime you get my number from James, if you guys ever have any questions or want me to reach out to anybody, James is my friend. That means you guys are my friends. So though you don't have to, you want to just text me and have a question about something, you just give my number and feel free anytime.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy birthday to you.
Thanks. I'm still celebrating. All right. Night. Take care. There you go.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, Lucas. Great interview there, guys.
God, I love
Yeah,
the history that he brings to the table. Been
it.
around for a while.
I'm gonna send you a couple follow-up questions there, James, because I had a couple of follow-ups I wanted to ask him. But the thing that I'm most fascinated with is the career in trauma. Like, he talks a lot about trauma and everything he pretty much he's done in his life has been based on different trauma, right? I'm very curious and interested to know if it's something there, if it's the adrenaline, solving problems, if there's something there that what makes him tick to actually do that. You know what I'm saying? Is it like he's just good at it? So he's, that's why his career takes him that way? Or is there something there that kind of drags him to it? You know what I'm saying?
Now, Rob.
Yeah, the intrigue.
Call me crazy, but you sound intrigued to do it. I mean, get with him, maybe do a one-on-one interview, write it up, do a whole thing, buddy. Because, he's definitely an intriguing character.
Yeah, he was. I mean, there was a lot more questions there for sure.
I mean, yeah, we could have probably went another hour just with him. So
yeah, like he's very interesting.
All right, the show has to go on, guys. It has to go on.
That's true.
So let's dive into some of these topics here, starting out with my man David Benevidez. David Benevidez had a nice little fight this weekend. He actually got a TKO stoppage. Very dominating performance. Lucas, I'm going to come hot and off the press with you. Did he make a statement? And if he did, what kind?
I mean, he made a statement basically saying I'm still here. For me, it wasn't anything above and beyond. I mean, he looked good. But, I mean, he was supposed to. I mean, it was a fight for him to look good in. I'm not thoroughly impressed, but, he's still David Benevidez, still doing what he always does, throwing in some extreme combinations, and was able to get him out of there. So he did everything right, but I'm still not overly impressed, if that makes sense.
Now, James, one of those things he did right being he made weight all week for this fight. So he actually made 168 pounds. There was talk, people were thinking he was moving up to 175. He doesn't seem to think so. He thinks that he's a good 168 pounder and he's poised to get his title back. But he also wants to fight the best. What do you think is next for him in his future?
hard to say what's next for him. He did make 168. He's committed to fighting at 168 for the next 3 years. Wink, wink. That's what he said. We'll see how that goes. But there's something that makes me feel good about someone is when they learn their lesson, they show it, and they are responsible going forward. They take care of business. He took care of his business in this fight. He showed up to make weight, showed up aggressive, fought his fight. So I feel good about that. I hope he can stay on track because you know what's happened in the past where he blew his belt, and the pun intended again. But who knows? To answer your question, I think another kind of a stay busy thing. I don't know who it would be, but at 168, he's called out a few people. And obviously the target there is Canelo. And I think that'll happen at some point. Probably not this year. I think Canelo's booked. Canelo's always booked. But hopefully maybe next 2022, Cinco de Mayo kind of thing. But in the immediate, it's hard to say who he'll get at 168. But he's comfortable at 168. He looked pretty decent. And the way his body is structured, he's just not very muscular. He's not very lean. He seems kind of soft, but he's muscular. He's in good shape, and more power to him. I'm a Benevidez fan. I'm in his corner and want to see him do well.
Shakur, what are your thoughts of Benevidez this weekend? And do you think he could be or already is a top dog in the division?
I would definitely say he's a top contender in the division. But some of the reasons are positive reasons that are like natural talent, like the quick combinations and the power that he has. And some of them are like, I feel that he's like on the edge of really needing to be up in weight because he is quite a bit larger than everybody else. Now, of course, if you're able to make the weight and he can stay in that zone for 3 more years, according to him, then I know that that's something he's going to want to do. And you know, he's saying he doesn't think he deserves a Canelo fight yet, but I'm just like, why the hell not? You know, that's my problem with the situation is why do you need to go through these other people? I mean, you're a 2-time former world champion now with WBC. So, I mean, to me, that's enough to qualify to fight Canelo at this point. And then the belt wasn't taken from actually ring action. It was taken for other reasons, which means Canelo wouldn't even have that title. So it's like, give me my belt back. I don't feel that he needs to go through these other fights. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's some kind of political situation is what, but for me, that's, you know, it's just not necessary. I thought the guy Ellis was a formidable opponent for him. He did give him some work, and he had a hell of a chin for quite a number of rounds. And I was just wondering, that was another question I meant to ask Mike, but you know, just the fact that you have some, you know, if you're not going to win a fight and you're taking so much abuse, you know, when would he as a Cutman be like, you know what, that's enough? Because I saw quite a bit of that in that Benevidez Ellis fight. I just felt that, you know, I didn't understand why he was continuing to go on because his power was weakened earlier in the fight. And so there was no chance of him knocking out a big Benevidez. So I just didn't feel that he should have, you know, I don't even think his team should have allowed him to take that much punishment. But that's just me. I did think that he did a good job for, you know, helping David be more in shape and getting some rounds in though. He did look really great. With the flashy combos and you know, just I mean, he really does have some quick hands, especially for someone that size. You wouldn't think that they would be that fast. So I would like to see him against a Canelo. You know, does a Charlo have a chance of knocking out a Benevidez. I mean, the night of the fight with the weight increase, I really don't see that. And would he probably make him look less than as for an opponent for Canelo? I see that as a possibility. So I really don't think he should go for the Charlo fight either. Caleb Plant, that might be another problem for him because it's someone on the move. It's one thing to look flashy and good when someone's standing there, right in front of you. So these are some things that he would have to work on. But I do, despite everything I'm saying, I do actually think Benavidez would be an excellent opponent for Canelo. Perhaps maybe those two fights he's talking about taking is more so that he could, try some different styles and be more ready for a Canelo. I don't know, but I don't feel that he needs to have those two fights, before.
Bobby, your take on Mr. David Benavidez?
Man, I think he looked good. He did what he had to do. He got a guy there that was game, completely game. He probably did better than what a lot of people expected. And Ronald Ellis, he's solid, man. It's I know sometimes we don't heard of certain guys. They don't have these high-profile names and stuff like that, but they're solid guys, man. They go to wars at the gym, and their record probably is not padded as other people, and they don't get a promotion, the highlights of other fighters, but they are solid as they come. You know what I'm saying? I think that's Ellis. So the thing is, like, Benavidez pretty much needs that. He kind of shows up to the level of competition. Kind of like there's other fighters that do the same thing. Like they're great fighters, but when you match them with lower opposition, then their level goes down. But when you match them to their level of position or better, they show out and show out. You know what I'm saying? Benavidez is that man, and I agree with everything you guys say. The guy looks sharp all around, defense, offense, timing. Definitely looks a little more disciplined this time. He came on weight, which that happens to be one of his Achilles heels. But I think the game plan that he has is pretty much, good. I mean, all these times, Canelo, we've been trying to watch Canelo with the Charlos, with the Andrades, with the BJ Sanders and stuff like that. We were talking about what, 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years, and Canelo has been taking his time fighting guys like Gildren, like Rocky Fielding and stuff like that. So now Canelo is the cash cow. So I think Benavidez is ready for Canelo. But the way that he wants to do it, when he wants to go through Charlo first in the Caleb plans, is the way for him to build more profile, to make him more, I guess, lucrative versus Canelo. And also because he wants to kind of like, he understands that even though Charlo and Caleb Plant are solid, the man at 168 is Canelo. Canelo's the big paycheck. Canelo's the top of the top. You know what I'm saying? So I guess he wants to go. He want to take the man on the third spot, then the man on the second spot before he takes and dethrone the cash cow, which is Canelo, which happens to be a solid guy. I'm officially a Canelo fan now. So I think he's ready, but I'm glad the fact that he's taking his time and he's building himself up for that. And I think he beats up Caleb Plant, he beats up Charlo, and Canelo, he will give him a good fight, but I think Canelo got that.
Yeah, Benavidez has been for a long time, for at least a couple of years now, one of my favorite fighters in the division. I think he's tough as nails. Unfortunately, I'm scared if he wins a title again, what might happen, because every time the man gets the title, he blows it on the scales or himself, figuratively. So I'm kind of scared if he does get that clout, what that fame might do to him. Hopefully he makes in his best interest and takes on all the big guys and wins these fights. Guys,
he's only 23, so cut the guy some darn slack. He's only 23. The first time he won that belt, he was only 19. Yeah, you want to party. I don't know who he got caught up with. They said some bad people, but you know how you had them fake friends at that age anyway. Everybody does. So, you you got to give him a break with these, mistakes that he's making, because he is so damn young.
I would try not to go that route because, boxing is a serious sport. You saw what Mike, or heard what Mike had to say about this stuff and how serious things are. If you're going to get in, and you need to cut some relationships that are, really bad influences, I think.
I think
It's just the way it is. I mean, it's a professional sport and it's very dangerous. And if you're going to be doing that, and we all know what I'm talking about, if you're going to do that, boxing is probably the last thing you want to be involved in. You know what though? He got it right. He straightened it out. He came clean. He's doing well for himself, and I'm happy for David Benevidez. Very happy for him.
Yeah,
he's going to do well. But
I'm not saying that everything you're saying is true. I'm just saying that, you know, at 19, you're still 19. Like, I just don't feel that we should keep, you know, bringing up what he did at 19. You know, now this last situation with being overweight, there again, we're in a COVID period. So I don't know how much, you know, the discipline is an issue or if it's really these kind of crazy, you know, circumstances that he gets involved in. But hopefully that's beyond, you know, past him right now.
Who knows? Maybe he was hanging out with Broner.
So anyway,
everybody should use that excuse, right?
kind of moving along in here. I'm gonna just mention because we pretty much already touched on McCaskill, Brooke, I can't speak. Cecilia. Congratulations, Jessica. It was a hell of a win. I do believe she won the fight. I do believe she won it wholeheartedly. So hands down to her. And that being said, not everybody, but if somebody has something really, really important they want to say about this, or can we move on?
No, I mean, I think it was a great fight. I think the right fighter won. Some people are disagreeing with the scores a lot, I see, but for the most part, I agree completely with how it was scored. I definitely saw a clear win for McCaskill.
Yeah, you know, and we talked about this a lot on the night, but you got to have something to do with these slow starts with these people. It's like they start off too slow, and they're starting off slow for a reason. And that's what I'm trying to say. They're starting off slow because they fear the other fighter.
But that's a good fight. It was a co-main event. I mean, it brought the thunder for women's boxing. I mean, all of women boxing should be proud of them because it was an amazing fight.
That right there, that's what you just said. It's really a great point. I just thought the whole night with scoring was an issue.
So speaking of that, let's go into the main event of the night. Chocolatito versus Estrada. Guys, we'll start with Lucas and go from there.
See, everything good in my eyes that the judges did in the McCaskill fight, they fucked it up in this fight. I mean, I definitely seen Chocolatito win by at least 2-3 rounds. I mean, so I guess it still was a competitive fight, but in no way could I see an Estrada win, guys. I don't know about the rest of you.
Shakur, what were they seeing in your eyes? What were they completely blind, like Ray Charles blind, or what do you think they were seeing in Estrada to give him that fight?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. He had some great rounds. He did have some good rounds. I just feel that, you know, apparently I didn't know this, but Texas likes to reward you based on, you know, aggression, whether it's effective aggression or not. So basically, if you're the boxer that's moving forward and pressing the action, even if you're not landing the more effective punches, they're going to give you a nod on that. So, I mean, but for me, I'm still confused on this one because I thought Chocolatito did a lot of moving forward as well. Like, it was like back and forth with them for a minute on who was being the aggressor. So I'm kind of confused about it. For me, Chocolatito definitely won. Who would you rather be in that fight is what I always ask myself. So I would have rather be Chocolatito in that fight. But I did not like how they was booing Estrada, guys. I didn't think that was right because Estrada was doing his best. He didn't freaking know, you know, I mean, he's in a war. That was a freaking war. He if they called him and said, yeah, you the winner, there's no need for the fans to have booed to that extreme that they did, basically knowing like what a hard fight that was. I mean, they was there and witnessing it. So I just thought that was totally wrong. And then, him and himself, he's like, well, I didn't really know how this fight was going because, I knew it was a tough fight. I knew we was going back and forth. So why the hell are you booing at that? I didn't think that was right. So that's
So
really
correct me if I'm wrong, Sakura, but didn't he have the crowd going into the fight? Wasn't it his crowd?
Yeah, that's the ironic thing is that you always you
Okay
start
then.
out and Chocolatito won some fans over, obviously,
All the fans.
from the war that had taken place. Judges get, people are fallible. These things happen, and it does sometimes depend on what side of the ring you're on, what you're viewing. All of that comes into play. But when you have something that's so damn, like, it's just totally big gap, like they're saying we're seeing something that's close, and they're seeing that this one opponent was way ahead. I mean, I don't have an explanation for that. I don't have an excuse that I can say that judge was going through, because I'm like you, what the hell was they looking at? I mean, you can see that was a really bona fide, close fight, but I did think that Chocolatito won the fight based on a couple of rounds that was like, it was give and take, but it seemed like Chocolatito really had the harder punches in those rounds that seemed like they could be close. So in that instance, I'm gonna always go with the heavier puncher if it's close. So for me, that's the reason why I did that kind of scoring, because I don't want those Chocolatito punches on me. You know what I'm saying? So I knew Estrada didn't want to really like that either. So, and it was a couple of times I think he actually had Estrada hurt some, but he didn't I don't think he recognized, because Estrada was good too, in that he kept fighting through it, even though he was hurt a little bit. So I'm a fan of both of them right now, for sure.
Well, speaking of the 117-111 scorecard, the WBA agrees with you because they actually suspended that judge. And hats off to the WBA because that's the right thing to do. Now, James, you were kind of putting your thumbs down and shaking your head with Shakira. Do you agree with that judge, or the judges giving the bout to Estrada?
It's hard for me to say, man, because honestly, I'm an Estrada fan. I'm a Gallito fan. I said it last week. And I scored it 114-114.
Okay.
All right. So,
well, that was being fair.
Choco is a hell of a fighter, and he really surprised me in one thing, is that he was so resilient late in the fight. I didn't think Chocolatito would look as good as he did. He looked dynamite. He looked young. He was light on his feet. His combinations were fantastic. Challenged Gallito every step of the way, and in Gallito's defense, in Estrada's defense, he said, if this guy throws 3 punches, I'm throwing 4. He throws 5, I'm throwing 6, in a sense. He didn't say that verbatim, but he had to match everything that Chocolate did, and he did. And I scored at 114 twice, favoring Estrada. In other words, if I had to pick one, it would be Estrada. I think it was just a busier fighter. He didn't land the hardest blows, by no means. Gallo really lit him up. Sorry, I said that wrong. Chocolate really lit him up late in the fight. 11 and 12 were his rounds, and that's vintage Chocolatito. But in the end, I saw Estrada win, and I'm really happy for the guy.
Yeah.
Javi, I want to know your 5 minutes right now, because I feel like Iran is coming.
Not really. I mean, I think it was a hell of a fight. Boxing porn again. We already knew this from the first fight, and honestly, I believe Estrada got the first half of the fight, and then Chocolatito started picking it up, which made a difference. But this is a championship fight, so I will have to edge Chocolatito based on the fact that he put those championship rounds at the end on the back, and pretty much the fight was close. Now, this is going to be one fight that I wouldn't be happy with a draw, because this is what happens. And let's just talk loud and clear here. Let's not beat the bushes. We know the politics. There's money involved. These two give fireworks. So the whole plan here was to make it a third time. The plan here was to favor it again. The crowd was pro Estrada because it happened to be in a community where it's mostly Mexican. I'm sure that the judge, if he's Spanish, which he sounds like he's Spanish based on his names, he's probably Mexican. So we already know. Talking, like I said, loud and clear. Sometimes certain fighters go fight at a certain place. They already have a few points on the scorecards just because of that. You know what I'm saying? And two, I would have been happy with a draw because we still get a trilogy and nobody wins, or actually both of them win. But the thing is, the crowd booed, right? Which it was just same thing. I share the sentiment with Shakura because it's like, how can you boo a man after they gave us that precious fight? Like they really put everything on the line, and you booing because of some big head that was scoring the scorecards got it wrong, because that's what happens, and everything correlates. We got a bad scorecards to a wonderful card, a wonderful freaking fight. So now the crowd, they're drinking, they're partying, they're not, they're hype. So now they aiming their frustrations against one solid man, because Estrada, I'm a Estrada fan, I'm a Chocolatito fan. This is why I was like, I didn't want to choose, because both of these guys are solid out in the ring. So I believe Chocolatito won, maybe by one round. I think he edged it. Like I said, my point of going, I will give it a draw, but my point of edging towards Chocolatito is because I believe he show out on the last round, which is the championship bouts, which that's what you're supposed to do. But I wouldn't be happy with a draw, and I just feel like the WBA, the WBC, the WBO, they probably going to start reinforcing these rules better when they hold a judge accountable for an atrocious scorecard like that. Maybe we'll start seeing this less and less. Maybe not. Maybe that dude, the judge, maybe he pissed somebody off in there, so they have to put this guy as an example. But nothing is really happening. They're just giving us like the sacrificing goats to make us think like something is happening, when in reality all of this was planned out in order to have a trilogy, to make more money. Mind you, not to tell you guys that these guys were not only underpaid before the fight, but they're underpaid in the type of fight that they give us. We see freaking YouTubers making millions. For these guys, professional fighters that give us that type of fight that we probably don't get to see much, and they don't get paid like that, while other people are getting paid all around, and it's a bunch of corruption. That's just what makes this sport give you that sweet, bitter taste in your mouth, because it's like you get something wonderful, but something bullshit always has to happen. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, if I may, I think Avni Yildirim got paid more than these guys combined.
Look at that.
What's your thought on that?
I mean, I it's unfair, but it's part of boxing. I just feel like when a YouTuber is making million, and then a guy like Gallo or a Chocolatito, when they be giving us fight after fights, they put their blood, sweat, and tears, the whole line. This are the type of guys that when every time they step in the ring, they willing to give us our all. You can see they're giving us their everything. It's like every fight they leave a little piece of themselves in there for us, for the fans, for the sport.
Right.
So, and it's not fair that they're being taken advantage of, or that they're not getting the right prices. And on top of that, after all those atrocities happening, then you have some dickhead that just scoring the card. I don't know what the hell he was watching.
Oh, he had it 9-3, I think. No, I take that back. Yeah, it was about
117, 111. It's more like a 6-4. No, I mean like a 5-5. I would say like a 5-7. No, like a 8-4 or 9-3.
9-3. That's what it is.
Now it's great, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but he can still work other fights, just nothing sanctioned by the WBA. Am I right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So he's still out there making money. It really doesn't matter. I mean, the state athletic commission needs to be held responsible, not just the judge, not just the WBA can only do so much. They need to do this at the state level. That's the problem, and I still think we need a federal overseer of boxing in the states. That's just me.
That's exactly good.
I agree.
Here's my take on it, if I may. Because here's what I don't like. Here's what I always hate. I hate when you have a fighter that goes out there and fights his ass off in the ring, and gets completely disrespected by the judges. You can honestly see it in the post-fight interview with the emotion he poured out. And it doesn't just taint this sport or this fight, it taints his future. Because now he has to look at a trilogy fight and the judges are already against him. So what does that do to his mentality? And I'll tell you for what it's worth. He was looking towards his future with this victory. He put everything into this fight. And you could see it. And I'm talking about Chocolatito. Estrada did enough, or what he thought was enough, to fight him off, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't fight him off. Chocolatito should have earned this victory, whether it even be a split. A draw, I could live with, but I really thought Chocolatito really won the fight. Now, here's what I'm going to commence to saying to y'all now. The flyweight division, I will now acknowledge and respect.
Man.
Just this flyweight division.
Oh,
here's why. Here's why. Because what Hobby said and what y'all said, these guys are literally pouring their heart and soul into the ring. And it's not just Estrada. It's not just Chocolatito. We saw Summer Visal return to the ring on Friday night, earned himself a hellacious victory, a statement victory. And he's the one who has say at the victor of this fight, not just for the trilogy. Summer Visal is the mandatory challenger for the winner of this fight. So he also was in the mix. This flyweight division is really literally one of the best divisions out there. I wholeheartedly agree that they need to start getting paid like it. They're getting the draws. They're getting the fans. They need to start getting the publicity that they deserve, because this is a hell of a place to be in. And you now will have a possible trilogy fight. You could with Estrada and Summer Visal. You can have the trilogy fight with Chocolatito Estrada. You could have the trilogy fight with Chocolatito and Soren Visal.
I'm so proud of you, man. It's like watching my little son grow up. I mean, my kids, I'm so proud of you. I feel like a proud daddy right now.
There's a lot of lower weight class fighters that I hate still to this day, but this flyweight division is something to be acknowledged and stated.
I just feel like you gave out a suggestion where you said that this type of fighters deserve a little more attention, more paid, but that starts with fans acknowledging that they actually matter, and that even though they small and they below 135, they still give us this type of like classics. Because to be honest with you guys, 5-10 years from now, we'll go back to watch these tapes and be like, "Dang, that was a hell of a."
It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's what I'm saying. And then these champions, in the ring, they're savages and they give us everything. But when you actually follow them outside in the career, outside how they are as a person, they're wonderful human beings as well, both of them. So this is what makes, like, to me, I relate to fighters like that more than, the all that flamboyant shit, like this rapping and all this flashy shit. No, like that humble warrior that really knows what hunger is and fights his way out of poverty. That's the one that usually, it makes you relate to him and it makes you respect these fighters. All I'm saying is, like Lucas, right? The whole bullshit, which is they suspended this judge, but only for a WBA sanctioned fight, so he can still work other fights. That's just bullshit. That was kind of like what they did to your man Canelo, where they said, "Oh, we're gonna suspend him for 6 months." Well, he don't fight every 6 months anyways. So what are you doing, right? That's why when the club closes at 4 a.m, they'd be like, "All right, you know what? You're getting kicked out." Well, you was gonna close at 4 a.m. anyway, so you're not doing no type of punishment. You're just making a scene to show face. But you're not doing nothing. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't quite agree with you. Yes, it could be a stiffer punishment. It it can always be a stiffer punishment, but I do feel that it does mean something for them to suspend them in that way, being that it's been so long since any judge has had any repercussions for bad decisions. So I'm not while you're saying that, yeah, like he could still do a Texas fight, mind you, or a fight somewhere else. Yes, technically that is correct. However, at least we're getting some acknowledgement culturally that this is not going to continue to be accepted.
Fair
at
enough.
least by this
But-
sanctioned body. So I think
There are-
this has mean more than just, you know, a slap on the wrist, because number one, it's very embarrassing for a judge to be suspended in this manner, and it also stops other states and commissions and sanctioning bodies from hiring you as well. So it does have repercussions, but I do think that it means something, because it's just been so long since any of these judges with these bad decisions have really been checked, as I like to say.
But
Yeah.
there was a. I'll do this real quickly. There was a fight in Japan with Hassan and Dam, and I got it here. Ryota Murata. You guys recall that?
Yeah, well,
And there was some really funky card on that fight, and that was a WBA middleweight title. I believe it was middleweight. And so they were so astonished at one of the judges' scorecards. His name is Gustavo Padilla. That they went back and put him on suspension, and they actually went back and looked at that fight. The commissioner, the guy who's in charge of WBA, and I hope it's WBA, went back to look at it with 4 other judges and the referee, and they scored the fight and said, "Okay, we need a rematch here." And Murata won that rematch, but they actually did something about it. They actually took action. I don't know if you guys remember this, but
There was one in you
They-
too that like that too.
that first fight was in Japan, and so he actually Hassan and Dam lost that fight. That was in 2017 in May, then again in August or September when he lost the second fight. But they took action, and this guy was suspended, the actual judge.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the same sanctioning bodies, and that's
We
suspended
believe so.
Judge
I think so.
Sucre.
So
Yeah, so the idea is that they are taking action. They are doing things that, they're being held to account.
no,
And
yeah,
it's important. It's important.
Yeah, I appreciate the WBA for at least making the first step. I guess I'm just more complaining that it's still not enough for me. Yes, I mean, this card isn't even really all that bad. Like, yes, it was bad, but it wasn't, I don't think, definitely
Wow.
not top 5, that
I-
I've seen. So, I mean, I get it and I don't, but at the same point, I hope that this actually is something that happens moving forward. Because it's so draining. I spend a lot of my day defending boxing, especially here in the Midwest where it's not very big, and people are like, well, you got all these belts, and I'm like, look, there's a good reason for that, okay? Can you imagine like the World Series being actually the World Series? This is like the MLB winning their champion going against, the baseball team in Tokyo. You will never see that, but doesn't that sound amazing? Doesn't that sound good? Wouldn't you actually want to watch that baseball event? This is what boxing does on a daily basis. Companies fighting other companies, they make anything happen. We can make anything happen in boxing. Any fight can happen with the right circumstances. And, you get something amazing and something cool, something like this fight that should elevate the sport, but that it gets a black eye, gets knocked back down. The sport of boxing can't keep up. And every time something like this happens, the stock of boxing plummets, and I hate to see it, And I gotta defend it more. Now I gotta go out and be like, no, it's still good, and it's a repeat process that has pissed me off. It's something you love to hate, the sport of boxing. But
Here's
Well
something
said,
real.
Lucas.
If I may, there's something real quick here. I just want to say, if you look at the scorecards, there's a lot of disparity there. Round 6 and round 7 is the only 2 rounds where the judges agreed, where they actually had the same scores. And I can't go back and tell you who they scored it for or if they were separate, but every round but 6 and 7 were different. In other words, there was no consensus there. So it's a very, very difficult fight to judge. I mean, the activity here was just, number 10, number 11, scale of 1 to 10, it was number 11 every round. In my opinion, one of the best fights I've ever seen. I've seen a lot. So it's a difficult fight to judge, but the score that Judge Sucre presented. Sorry, say that again.
I said, yeah. So it's such a contentious and good fight. So how can you, as a judge, come up with such a huge gap? Like that's where
you were expecting something a bit closer. I got it 114 twice. I'm not saying I'm a judge by any means, because generally when I judge something on my little iPhone and little scorecard app and everything, I'm like, just put your phone away and shut up, because I'm always off by I'm way off. But sometimes I get it, and I think I got this one. But that's to say that it was a very difficult fight to judge, and I don't know what he saw, but here's another thing that I was thinking. 9-3, next step down is 8-4, which is a little bit better. 7-5, he's in the pocket, but he's out there, and I'm glad that they are investigating. Who knows? Maybe he's on the take. Maybe.
I hope they get
so.
Maybe.
I had read where Al Bernstein went back and watched the fight like twice, and he said he had 3 rounds for Chocolatito, 3 rounds for Estrada, and then there were 2 rounds, 4 rounds in which it could have went either way for him. So that's just to say how competitive the fight was, and so he ended up just giving it the draw, the 114.
Here's kind of a funny little point on my little doodad here. I have the judge pad thing, and you can select a round if it was very, very close, and I did it on every round.
Oh my god!
I always punch it. I always punch it. There was not one round that was clearly running away, for either fighter. Maybe one, maybe 2. Okay, I'll give you that much. But you know what? It's close. True. And there's always going to be these controversies in these bouts.
I think we agree to that.
More punches, but Chocolatito had harder punches, more impactful punches to me. So I go with effective aggressiveness. However, they were rounds where even with Chocolatito's heavier punches, your man Estrada was going at it. It was like double the amount of punches. So it was just a great fight.
So now I want. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just wrapping up because we got a few more we got to touch on because we got this weekend's fights coming up. But I think we all agree though it was definitely a much closer fight than what they gave Chocolatito credit for, to be honest. With that being said, I do want to right a wrong here because I did do the lower weights so bad. I want to go out on a limb and say I would put all 3 of these fighters top pound for pound on the pound for pound list. They're that good, and they've got the records to prove it.
Which 3?
Chocolatito, Seren Visal, and Estrada.
What about Nayo Inoue?
He's already on my top 10.
Oh, okay. So Chocolatito just made it to your top 10.
Moving along.
He's trying to braze over this because he don't want.
He's like, nope, I always did that. What? That wasn't me. That was somebody else. I don't know what you're talking about.
No big deal.
We got this weekend coming up. No, we gotta move on.
Robert saw the light.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Robert.
This weekend coming up, guys, we actually have a few fights to touch on. First up is one of Lucas's favorite fighters, Artur Beterbiev. He's going to be fighting on the 20th, actually, on ESPN in Russia. He's fighting Adam Denines for his WBC IBF titles. Guys, I don't think that any of us have a doubt, but we're all picking Beterbiev to win this fight, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm there.
His opponent, so I will trust that Beterbiev will be his best. But
Yeah, and I think he needs to make a statement.
He needs more activity, is what he needs.
Yeah,
Benevidez is a hell of a fighter. I've seen 2 or 3 of his fights, and he's good, but just needs a little bit more activity and some more limelight and some more promotion. But he's good, and eventually we'll see him. But yeah, just a hell of a fighter.
To say he's got power is an understatement, man. Being there live watching him fight, man, those firecrackers every time he hits somebody. Even firecrackers not doing it. It's more of like an M80. There's explosions in that ring.
And Lucas, so would you say he's one of the most underrated fighters out there?
I think he's going to be the most feared if he's not already. I think, Canelo didn't come up and try for no Beterbiev for a reason. I think he went back down for a reason. If he ends up fighting Beterbiev, let's just say I would be surprised.
Alrighty. So then,
no, but Canelo, they reached out to him and wanted to fight him.
That's bullshit, said, James.
Oh, come on, let's make this fight happen.
That's bullshit.
You're busy. Thank God.
Placement first.
Kovalev.
Right.
So then we also have a heavyweight fight in DAZN. We have Glowicki. He's facing Lawrence Coulier for the vacant WBO cruiserweight title. My bad, it's not a heavyweight, it's a cruiserweight fight. So that one is something to look forward to on DAZN. And then, guys, we have the all action-packed fight on DAZN with young Virgil Ortiz Jr. taking on Maurice Hooker. This is also on March 20th on the DAZN card. I don't know, guys. I think this is a tough test for Victor Ortiz.
Hooker looked good in his last fight. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this one. It's going to be a good fight. I don't even know who to favor, honestly.
Well, I know who Shakur is taking.
Virgil Ortiz, baby. I got to go with my man Virgil. That's my guy from Texas. I have to go with him, guys. And the one reason why, even though I do believe this is going to be a way better fight than we've seen in previous outings with Maurice Hooker, because Maurice Hooker is no longer having to drain his body to the point where he's diminished what he can do in the ring. He has spent so much of his career trying to make these different weights, and now he does not have to do that anymore. He is really going to be at the weight that he really should be at. So I am excited about this particular fight, guys. But I have to give the edge to the younger, more hungrier, need some more coins type fighter. And that is my Ortiz, baby.
James, your thoughts on this fight? Who you going with?
I think it's a nice matchup for Virgil. Definitely Virgil. Can't wait to see it and what he does after that, because he's definitely at that point where he's stepping up into the big leagues of the most competitive division there is, I think. Obviously, Superfly's big, and, heavyweight's what it is. But, welterweights, we're talking Crawford, Spence, Porter, and Ugas, my man Ugas, And if he wins this fight, just a step closer to that gang of killers. And here we go, Virgil. Show us what you got.
Left them new killers out there, with in his booth. Is in that same league,
He's in league. Yes, exactly. He's in league with all those guys.
Javi, what are you looking forward to? And do you think Virgil can get this stop?
Yeah, definitely. If what was this dude, the 140 dude that stopped him? Ramirez, I think it is.
Ramirez.
So if he stopped him, Virgil would definitely stop him. Trust me. I put everything that I have to put on that, and I think this is the perfect opportunity actually for Virgil to kind of get a little more exposure, because this is like a sleeping lion, and everybody's been sleeping on him. and he's been climbing up slowly, keeping a low profile, keeping it, not putting himself out there like that. But I think this is going to be that one fight where people will be like, oh, man, this kid is, like we got something here, and that we've been following him, we know, we understand that he needs a few names in order for him to be a little more mainstream, I guess. But if this kid got the goods, man. He's gonna be a problem. He's gonna be a problem, and I think this is gonna be the fight that's gonna put everybody else on notice, and most people are gonna be like, there's only so much you can not mention somebody and stuff like that, because Virgil is here to stay, and he's gonna make a statement on Saturday.
And he's so adorable.
So
Inside and out, he has great personality. He's so adorable.
And he's mad humble too.
Goes to the body. I mean, that's the main thing for me. It's like a boxer that goes to the body. You have to love him.
Yeah.
So I hear this from y'all all the time about this prospect, that prospect. They're gonna be great. They're the next best thing since sliced bread, this and that. I'm not picking him to win this weekend. I'm not gonna do it. And I'm not doing it because I want you guys. I want him to prove to me what you guys see, because I haven't seen it yet. And this is his toughest opponent to date. Yes, they bought this kid up safe, whatever. Now they're ready to feed him to the Lions because he, quote unquote, proved it. He hasn't proved nothing to me. And that's simply why I'm taking Maurice Hooker, because Maurice Hooker has been in there. He has been in the big fights. He has been on this level before. He's proven himself. He probably learned a lot of lessons along the way. I think this kid's not knowing what he's getting into. I think he's dismissing Maurice Hooker as an actual top-level opponent, and he's going to run into some problems. And those problems are going to come out on this fight. I'm not picking him to win, because simply put, I want him to prove me wrong.
I don't think he's missing Hooker as an opponent, though. I haven't heard him say anything bad about Maurice Hooker.
No, he's not
the situation. Because I haven't heard anything about what did he say to dismiss Maurice Hooker, a former champion?
Nothing.
For the simple fact that he hasn't respected him yet as this biggest opponent. He hasn't come out. He hasn't come out and said this is my biggest fight yet. He really hasn't said anything, if you want to be honest. So that's why I'm saying he needs to prove it to me then, because he thinks I believe he thinks he's at a level above Maurice Hooker, and he's not there yet.
I think he is. But Robert, I have a question though. So you said that you haven't seen nothing special from Virgil Ortiz, and he haven't been proving himself. But I wonder, what has Maurice Hooker actually done that Virgil Ortiz haven't done? Like, what's the difference from these two? Like, what have Hooker proved to you, right, and to your standards that Virgil haven't yet? Like that you're waiting for Virgil.
Seasoning. It's simple. Seasoning. He's been in these type of fights.
Right.
Virgil ain't beat nobody yet.
Okay.
Virgil hasn't beat nobody yet.
And what type of which opponents would you give Hooker credit for?
All the top fights that he fought.
Which are?
I see what you're trying to bait me in. What did I tell you? Hold on now. What did I tell you? I said I'm picking Maurice Hooker because I want Virgil to prove it to me.
Right.
Do I think Maurice is better than Virgil? No. I don't think he's as talented as Virgil is, but I want Virgil to prove that to me. And it could be a trap and bait fight. It could be a bait fight.
But I thought he was in the war with the guys that his name starts with an S. Oh my God.
See, you can't even remember.
But he's in a lot of wars. This particular fighter was one of the fighters of the year last year. I just can't remember his name because it's kind of difficult. But I'm saying Maurice Hooker was in a good fight that time with him.
Oh yeah.
That's how he won his championship title. And then lost it to my man Jose Ramirez. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not trying to bring that up, but I'm just saying, like, he did have a championship at one time, and it was a rough fight for him.
I mean, I partly agree with what he's saying. I think a fight against a upper top-notch opponent like Jose Ramirez definitely builds some experience, and that's what helped him turn into a better fighter. He looked really good in his last fight. That's why I'm giving him a shot. I'm not gonna say he's gonna win like Rob, but I think he's got a good shot.
Well, that's the thing. To look at Rob is choosing Hooker because he wants because he knows that Ortiz is gonna win. He has to prove himself to Rob.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're all picking Ortiz.
Right. But Rob is choosing Hooker because Ortiz still have to prove himself, but he knows Ortiz is gonna win. He's going for Hooker until Ortiz prove himself.
But to be honest with you, I'm tired of going with y'all saying Momo's the GOAT, and then I pick Momo finally and I lose. Okay, so I'm gonna get ahead of the game this time. Since you want to crown him. I'm not there yet. I'm going with Maurice Hooker, and if he wins, I'm gonna be on the show next week saying I told you so.
We know.
He's basically like, whoever wins, that's what's boat I'm jumping on.
Right. Because if Ortiz wins, he proved himself. And if Hooker wins, he said, well, I told
y'all.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Guys, what do you guys think?
No.
Sorry, we're doing something right
No,
now?
go ahead.
No, just no. Boxing topic was out of topic. This week was announced the heavyweight, the AJ versus Fury. But as far as like deep confirmations, it haven't been done. There's been some strong rumors out there, but nothing's solidified yet. How do you guys feel about that? Not just the announcement, but the fact that we don't have a date, we don't have a venue, we don't have these different things that make you be like, oh wow, it's really, really official. Well, how do you guys feel about that?
Oh man.
Yeah, I'll go first. I was just watching a interview with Eddie Hearn, and he did not make an announcement. It was basically an update, and that's the distinction he made. People are always constantly calling and asking him questions about Fury and Tyson and Fury and Tyson and Fury. He said, "Hey, this is what we got," and he did not want to make that seem like an announcement, but he was trying to tell his, the press, this is where we are at this point. It was very clear, and he made it very clear, and he didn't overstate anything. It's a simple announcement of where they are. I said that wrong. A simple update of where they are, but not an official announcement. And so I think they're still trying to zero in a specific date and location.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. They were saying that Wilder basically didn't, give notice, right, for his fight, and that's how this is possible. But then we hear later today that Wilder was given step aside money. So, I mean, how did that happen when previously, Aaron was saying, well, no, because he didn't meet his contractual obligations to give us notice by a certain time. So why did you have to give him step aside money? So that's one inaccuracy. And then the second one is just to hear, well, we still got a long way to go. That was in the quote, kind of like, they've agreed to 2 fights, but we still got a ways to go.
Come on, Sakura. This stuff gets done. You know it. I mean, this is boxing 101. I mean, especially at the highest order like this. This is the kind of backroom dealings you get. You be like, all right, well, we're going to announce that, but you can't say this. You can't say I took talk away money. All right. I got to be the one to announce it.
Period. I don't have a problem with the negotiation period, but why come out and tell a half situation? So it's not a done damn deal. I mean, that's the problem.
Okay, but hold on. He did say both guys signed on the dotted line. He did say that.
What?
He said they both agreed. They both signed on the dotted line.
Man. Fight
contract.
Hold on a sec.
Hold on. It's not finalized.
Because per ESPN, the finalization is the date. It is who's going to host it, because they're trying to bring in the host countries here. But the split, from what I'm hearing, is going to be 50-50 on the first fight. The winner gets 60-40 on the second. And both parties signed on the dotted line. Both parties, meaning Joshua and Fury. And that was the big ordeal. Now, these formalities, the reason why they can't announce shit is because they really don't have the money. They don't have a host site. They don't have
announce it. So don't announce it. But hey, besides that, do you guys want to see this fight? Are you guys excited about this fight? I mean, let's just get to the
yes. Yes.
We want to see this fight. Now,
I'm excited for it. Maybe not as much as I should be, but
so now I have a question though, remaining with this fight, concerning this fight. Why the hell, if it's true, because we know that's actually allegedly, did Wilder really took some step-side money after all that caca he was talking about? Like, the king like me is not gonna step aside. I'm gonna make sure that I get my rematch close. So after talking all these conspiracy theories, delusional shit, then saying that he was not gonna take a step-aside money, so what is he doing? Like, he really took that step-aside money?
The link where they say it happened, but there's bait and click. There's this clickbait out here, but I'll send you the link of what I saw.
Honestly, if I'm Wilder's camp, I'm taking step-aside money. Yeah. Hoping Joshua wins because that's the easier fight for him to win.
Thank you.
And then beating Joshua. Honestly, it could be pretty brilliant.
That is a brilliant plan.
Yeah.
But the thing is, after you have talked so much shit about not taking the step-side money, about the reincarnation of something that he thinks and all of this shit, then you contradict yourself by doing what you say you were not gonna do after you have said some delusional shit that have people looking at you like, So what's going on as far as like, I really hope it's not true, because it's like the little bit of respect that I have for Wilder, it will go away with that, because after you have said.
And it's respectful to take the extra time you need when you feel like you really need to start from ground one. Like, isn't it better?
Thank you. We all know he's not ready.
And get money.
No, he's not ready. But as I'm saying, that's why you keep your mouth shut and you be quiet. You take your step-side money, kind of like Triple G did when Cotto paid him to fight Canelo, or Canelo paid him to fight Cotto. So Triple G wasn't saying, well, I don't want this shit. I'm not going to take the money. It's against my beliefs as a champion, blah, blah, blah. No, he took the money quietly. He could have waited out a little bit more, and then he went after. But the thing that what makes it bad is not that's the perfect plan. That's the best idea. Take the steps of money, get some tuna fights, and then you go and hope that Joshua wins, because you got a better chance to win Joshua than Fury. But after you have to.
Well, how you like this? I mean, Estrada is saying now that he'd rather have the Chocolatito trilogy than to fight his number one contender, and he already took step-aside money in order for them to fight the second fight, Chocolatito and Estrada. So now, I mean, he doesn't want to step aside again. So how do you reconcile with that, with this step-aside money? Do you take the easy step-aside money a second time? Or you're like, no, I want my chance at the belt finally?
No, there's a lot of problem. I don't think fighters get, they earn their opportunity and they kind of get pushed to the side a lot. I think, screw that. If they say they ain't going to take the step-aside money, you better give them that goddamn title shot like you promised.
Right, yeah. Estrada is now saying that he'd rather have that Chocolatito third fight.
Too damn bad. I wouldn't want to fight Cernvosa.
Me neither.
He's got it hard either way.
Killer. Man. That dude's a killer.
There ain't no easy fight. You gotta get beat up by one of them, son.
Estrada can win that fight, though. That's a good fight. I think Estrada can win it. He has a beautiful, beautiful boxing style. He reminds me of like Marquez, just a little smaller version of it. Yeah. Now, I don't know what happened, but in that particular weight class, you have Chocolatito, we have Gallo, we have Sorum beside, and then we have Quadras. I don't know if you guys remember the Quadras. Yeah. I know he's.
I like Quadras too.
But that's one solid dude too that made it a little. The little four kings in that little division. I'm not gonna say the four kings because people hate that comparison, but I'm saying those were four main forces at flyweight, and I would like to see Quadras get back in the mix, because those four that we just mentioned, it will bring some attention to the smaller guys.
I mean, I'm agreeing with you. However, there's only one that's going to be like a cash money fight for Estrada right now, and that's a Chocolatito. And that's what the bottom line of that whole scenario was. It's like, I'd rather get if I'm going to be beat up on again like that, I'd rather take more money. I want the mill.
Well, we got sidetracked because we got back onto that. We're talking back about AJ Fury.
I did want to say one thing right quick.
About that. I'm just one person that's not excited about an AJ Fury fight. I'm just not.
Well, then you're not excited about the heavyweights thing. Just
Well,
admit it. You're not excited.
Let me say this. I think you guys may know this, but Sor Rungvisai won this weekend, right? He stopped his opponent, a decent opponent, after 2 or 3 rounds. Referee called it because Sor Rungvisai was just connecting some serious blows. Same card that I sent you that video on, Lucas. Same card, same team, in fact. Sor Rungvisai was just, every punch that he threw was what they call that bad intention, and just connected. Decent opponent. But I did want to ask you guys a question on May 31st of 2014. Do you guys know what happened that day? Anybody? Carlos Cuadras beat Sor Rungvisai in Mexico City. Carlos Cuadras did.
What fight was that? That was like number 2. I mean, what?
Carlos Cuadras did beat Sor Rungvisai. In the books, he's listed as his real name. Because Sor Rungvisai, Srisaket is where he's from, but I think it's spelled differently. I think it's spelled Sisaket, which is Thailand, obviously. But in the books, under Boxer, it's Wisaksil Wangek. And so, yeah, Carlos Cuadras beat him in Mexico City.
And I think that was after he beat Chocolatito too.
Stopped him.
Yeah, he stopped
in the 8th round.
Yeah, so that's
Carlos Cuadras said. Carlos Cuadras is a killer.
Yeah, he's a bad motherfucker. That's why he should be in the mix. He should be in the mix.
I think he is. I think he is. Very much so.
I know he was struggling with some problems. I think alcohol related or some addiction issues. But when he gets on his 100%,
you're right.
You're right. A bad guy. He's just a bad guy in boxing.
It's like Carlos Cuadras says, "Here's your medicine, Chocolatito. Here's your medicine." But he's. I do.
They can do a flyweight series with the 4 best, and we'll all be happy and eating our popcorn and ready to see some banging. I mean, they can do that too.
So Lucas, I guess they don't want to talk heavyweights. They're back to flyweights again now. We done lost control.
We're not sure that's going to even happen. So we just.
I call them the heavy whats. I wanted to say about Carlos Cuadras, one of the most charismatic people I've ever met in my life. I mean, that kid is just wonderful, fun, entertaining, compliments everyone. Just a lovely, lovely dude. That's Carlos Cuadras, and he's in the mix. So the Superflies got it. For sure, they got it going on. And but back to those other cats, the heavy who's.
Oh man,
I guess we're done, right?
I just want to say the guy's boxer I was talking about for Maurice Hooker was Alex Suedo.
Suedo.
Yeah, and that was a really tough fight for him. So he does get credit for that. But Virgil Ortiz, baby.
Virgil Ortiz gonna have to prove himself. He's gonna have to prove himself, but. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know he's gonna pass his test with flying colors, and hopefully, definitely, we're gonna see some big fights.
For sure. I want to thank Mike Rodriguez also for coming on.
Yeah, man, solid guy.
We'll be reaching back out to him in the future. I can tell.
Yeah. And you know what? With the little bit that I got, because I signed in at the end when he was on his last minutes. The way he talks about the sport, that you can tell the passion in him. Mm-hmm. You can tell when somebody loves the sport. Because even though we're in this Zoom call, but you can feel the energy of that man. You know, his eyes light up when he's talking about the sport, the experiences, and that's like humbling, man, to see somebody like that. Because most of us are hardcore boxing fans, so we do appreciate the sport more than the usual, the average fan that just tune up whenever there's a big fight. Like we really, really live and enjoy this sport. You know what I'm saying? As brutal as it is, you know what I'm saying? It is a good thing to see somebody like that. I mean, he's blessed to be working in the corners and stuff like that. Next time I'll make sure I come earlier. I can ask you some questions, stuff like that. This is like a solid.
All right. Well, you know that he's going to be at the corner for a lot of great fighters, and Mike's a chatterbox, and I love him. He will give us some insight that no one else will. And he's very, very intelligent. And just the first time I saw him, he had a T-shirt that said War Tape, and I'm like, I got to ask you a few questions. Get over here. And so we started, that started that friendship. And I just love the guy. Just everything he says is very, very intriguing and very interesting. And I'm just happy to have that relationship with him.
Well, huge takeaway from me, because I was going to ask him how he feels that the sport can be safer. But in his dialogue and everything that he was talking about, it seems like he's very well convinced and very well aptitude on the fact that this is a trauma-based sport. And incidents and issues are going to happen in the ring. Fatalities can happen in the ring. So, that to me was a big takeaway, because here's someone who deals with trauma on a daily basis, and the way he handles the sport is that it's going to happen.
It's a good takeaway, and it's a good point.
We'll say that, but there are certain things that's being studied in order to, minimize that chance. You can reduce.
Oh, for sure. I think, we will be able to have some reduction and, better equipment going forward, for sure. There's always improvements can be made.
All right, y'all. I'm tired.
A lot of it has to do with that weight draining.
True.
So
all right.
Had a lovely evening, but I gotta go.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming on. Great show.
You can find us at
HappyBadBoxing.com.
Good